Welcome to The Kingdom Sleeps, the fantasy bedtime story decided by the roll of a dice. My name's Andrew, I'll be your story master for this evening.
And my name's Orla, I'll be playing Nina.
I'd like to know today, what is it that Nina knows about the history of Sopros, and specifically that of the tribes, the original tribes of the kingdom? Does she have any thoughts or feelings towards that somewhat mysterious history?
Nina's knowledge of the history of Sopros is a little bit patchy. Everything that she's learned, she has picked up from her short time in school. Though she wasn't the best at her schooling, history was one of her favourite subjects. And she's infinitely curious about the history of the land, and particularly about the tribes, knowing how spiritual they were and the incredible temples and relics that they've left scattered all across Moriwald. And it's been a huge highlight in her childhood, brief periods of being able to visit some of those temples and sacred places, particularly the Hanzai tree that she visited with her family when she was young. And she holds those memories really, they're really special to her.
Well, let's see if any of that curiosity that Nina has towards these ancient people can be piqued at all across the rest of the adventure. If you've been enjoying the podcast so far and you'd like to help us to create more fantasy content, then we'd really appreciate it if you came and joined us over on Patreon. We give ad-free episodes over there, as well as access to all of the art that we feature on the show, and also some occasional behind-the-scenes extras. If you already support us on the Patreon, we'd like to offer a huge thank you to you for your support. It genuinely means so much to us that we can have a little bit of help in creating this show that we've come to love so much, and we hope that you're loving it too. And with that, close your eyes, make yourselves comfortable, and join us where the kingdom sleeps. When we last left Nina, she was making her way into the small local village to post a letter to her family. She, along the forest path, encountered a member of the Guardians Guild, someone tracking the trail of a fugitive who had, supposedly, not long before, made their way along the path. In response to this, Nina sent her trusted friend Cota back to Lark's Grove just to make sure everything was fine. And so, entering into the village, she had a small interaction with a local grocer, Coghlan, and made an exchange with some pears, which really seemed to brighten her day. She also met with the local post office hand, Bellamy, and struck a deal with him, Nina not quite having the funds to send her letter away privately, as she wanted to ensure its delivery. And he quite excitedly offered to send it off at his cost if she could procure some work on the orchard. After these errands were complete, Nina was greeted by Cota just outside the post office. Cota holding a strange piece of material in his mouth, which, upon proper inspection, gave Nina some dark visions. The scent of it creating a dismal and almost downtrodden experience. You could say a sense of gloom overcame Nina very briefly. And upon asking Cota where he found this fragment of fabric, he began racing back down the forest path. And so now, we are greeted with the scene of a wide open path with the canopy of trees enclosing it over top. The softly shimmering and waving dappled light trailing along, and a sudden rushing flash of fur down the center of it as Cota scurries at a pace. Nina trailing as best she can, just behind him in pursuit. Now as you make your way hurriedly, following Cota's direction, what thoughts are at the front of Nina's mind?
After Nina first smelled and got a sense of that black substance on the material, she was overcome with a feeling of bad things. And on seeing Cota turn and sprint, she is feeling a bit panicked, I think. Something as out of the ordinary as this has never happened in her time at Lark's Grove. And as she sprints after Cota, she is, first of all, cursing her shoes and the fact of her ever putting them on. And she's of two minds whether to stop and take them off and throw them, or to keep going, trying not to trip as she chases Cota down the path, trying to keep sight of him as he dips and weaves.
So as you hurry down this path with, as you say, this panic in your chest and cursing the shoes beneath you, fumbling as best you can in the direction Cota is leading you, he does indeed dip and weave, almost as such you can't quite tell where he might move or dart next. Hurrying quickly along the path, you diverge from your normal route back towards Lark's Grove, along a fork in the road. And as you come along this path, it is here that the trees and the canopy above you begin to change More so, these dark leaves and crooked branches, almost like bony fingers dangling low down towards the path, some of which almost scraping your head. Lying above you, you are now entering along the path that cuts just through the whispering forest. And it's about halfway down this path that Cota comes to a screeching stop, almost sliding across the path and throwing up dust as he does so, and turning his body sharply towards the fence that holds back the overgrowing bushels, leading in towards the whispering forest. He crouches down on his front legs, stretches up his tail and wiggles it just briefly before shooting into the bushel and disappearing into the forest. Now, as you look at this foliage he's just jumped into, you can see a familiar piece of broken wooden thatched fence and a familiar looking bustling bushel. This large plant that has hand-shaped leaves that seem to wave, almost beckoning in the breeze. And you recognize these signs to be the entrance to a special place, a place you've been before, though no one else would know it. A small pocket of the whispering forest you happen to have stumbled upon in the past, and though you've not been back many times, it's somewhere very special to you. A secret only Nina knows. And so it would indeed be quite jarring to see Cota jumping into the forest right here, just at this spot. And so, as you watch Cota do this, what's your first gut reaction?
All the while that Nina was running and chasing Cota, she was so focused on following her Grida that she didn't pay attention to where she was going. And seeing Cota stop, seeing him dash in to the bushes, she suddenly takes stock of where she is. And her heart, that has been banging in her chest from running, is now beating fast for another reason. She feels the sense of thrill and excitement at visiting that special place that she has been before, but also she knows that this is maybe somewhere that she shouldn't be, somewhere forbidden. And she takes a moment to rationalize, just a brief moment. We have to follow Cota. If I don't, could get lost. And that black substance, that someone could be in trouble. And if you saw her, you would see just the slightest grin as she moves towards the bushes, putting her hand into her pocket as she goes, feeling that totem that she had brought. She steps forward.
So as she steps forward, almost slightly resonating with this edge of whimsy, she almost is trying to conceal even from herself, she pushes herself into this bushel, letting her whole body be ensconced by the leaves. And they begin to gently wave her in the direction of the opposite side of the bush. The feeling of very many tiny hands with a sort of sticky grip to them, all in combination producing this unavoidable force that forcibly pushes her all the way to the other side of the bush, as she is slightly grazed by twigs within it and brushed and tickled by the small grips and hairs of the leaves. Inside the bush being quite dark, and Nina losing almost a sense of even the direction she's going. But after what is only a few moments, she is suddenly pushed with some force out the other side of the bush. And I'll get you to roll a dexterity at this point.
That is a 20, not natural.
Now the force of this bush was so strong that if Nina was not feeling particularly excited with the mixture of a mischievousness and a slight panic in her heart, she might not have been alert enough to keep herself on her feet as it jettisons her whole body down out of the bush and down a very small hill of about 3 feet. But as this happens, almost instinctually, Nina is able to raise her hands and land her feet almost like a gymnast softly onto the thick, dark green moss that mats the entire floor, carpets the entire area around her now. And as she lands, she finds herself now in, like I say, a place she is familiar with. She's been perhaps a handful of times before. But even so, each time fills her with a beautiful sense of wonder and awe. And perhaps you could say a sense of home. Nina. She is in a wide, open glen, an opening of the forest. And the forest glen is surrounded by these large, tall, dangly trees that she could see from the outside, that from the forest path almost seemed quite foreboding, perhaps a little sinister, with their dangling branches, crooked like bones. But within the context of the forest itself, almost seem welcoming in the way that they wind and curve in amongst each other, with these thick roots that jut in very many directions and then deep into the ground, making almost like a natural wall for this enclosing. At the head of this enclosure stands what looks like was once a tall, proud, ceremonial statue, perhaps a totem of sorts. It appears to be a strange, abstract interpretation of a person with a bulbous head and mouth and eyes, and the figure sits cross-legged, I should say, perhaps 3 or 4 times the size of life than a real person. This stone statue sits with a large bowl in its lap, and its arms are wrapped around it. And just above the bowl sits a large, wide open mouth that produces a small alcove, all of which made of stone and covered in lichen and moss and creeping roots, to give the sense that this thing has been here for a long, long time, and has by this time been forgotten, to the point where perhaps you may even not quite notice it was there if it wasn't for its prominent size. Now, despite all of these mysterious features, the most prominent thing about the area that Nina's just stepped into is that it is filled with pink mamu, all of which about the size of Nina's palm, all of which resembling little, one could say, snail shells with long legs and arms about twice the size of their small, round bodies, with little eyes at the bottom of their bodies, near their feet. And they fill the air, they fill the trees, they fill the ground and the moss around, all seeming to be very busy and into their own activities. To look around, you'd see some appearing to simply be playing with each other, piling on top of each other in games. Some you might see collecting pieces of twig and parts of seeds from the trees and creating piles for reasons Nina could only guess. Some of which, upon Nina's arrival, break off from the crowd and begin to circle her feet and gently pat her ankles as what you might presume was a form of greeting. And finally, just over at the back, you can already see Cota, having made himself very at home, appears to be sat on a curving root, the inside of which filled with what looks like the fluffiest moss. Like it was built for Cota to just curl himself up in, which is what he does right now, surrounded by these Mamu who jump around him and play around his body, and he seems very relaxed and very content. As Nina stands in this scene, how does she feel?
Any remnants of the feeling of panic, of the black substance of chasing Cota, immediately disappears. And her breath catching in her chest as she looks around in wonder at the Mamu, the hundreds of them, just passing through the center of a tree, passing through a bush, would have been enough to fill her with awe. But being in this place, the ancient statue, she, careful not to disturb the Mamu at her feet, just falls to her knees. Seeing that Cota is safe and happy, she presses her face to the moss and just is for a moment in complete reverence of this sacred place.
So as Nina, taking in this rush of emotion, falling to her knees, presses her face against the moss on the ground, which feels at once quite cozy and comforting, but also just a little cool to the touch. Roll me a wisdom saving throw, please.
That is 11, sorry.
11. That feeling of all-encompassing relaxation fills Nina's body. She almost feels like in this moment she could drift off into a dreamless sleep. She holds on to her consciousness. Even so, on the side of her face, that lays on the ground, the ear that is pressed up against that soft, dark moss, begins to hear very, very subtle whisper. At first you couldn't even really be sure that you were hearing it. Perhaps you were thinking it. But slowly it becomes more prominent. Slowly there's a clarity to the words, albeit very low, still very hushed. And Nina hears the whispering voice of Steph, her grandfather. And his voice says, "Where are you?"
Upon hearing Steph's voice, she, in this almost dreamlike state, blinks her eyes, sitting up, looking around. Had she imagined it? She looks around. Does she see Steph?
Scanning her eyes around this open glen, amongst the trees, up in the canopy, she sees no one.
Opa?
There is a oddly dead silence in the air.
She massages her temples and must have imagined it. She, sitting up now, sees that statue with a big bowl and remembers her gift, her offering. She takes the talisman from her pocket. "I'm so sorry, sir. How very rude of me to not give you anything." She speaks to the statue, pulling out her talisman that she had been working on. It's a larger than a marble, smaller than a large stone, with some crudely carved vines and flowers wrapping around. It's not quite finished, but I made it for you. And she will place the offering into the bowl of this statue and take a deep curtsy bow.
As Nina places this totem into the bowl, bowing graciously, the statue, made of stone, solid and grounded, remains still, but has an air of stoic gratitude. And then Nina will notice the totem in the bowl begin to rock slightly, very gently at first, and then little more violently till it begins to shake back and forth. And then Nina will begin to notice the eyes of this totem gleam as a bright white light emits from them. They almost fill the area with this radiance. The bowl in which Nina placed the totem begins to spin, and you can hear the scraping of stone as it does so, and an aperture begins to open, a small hole at the bottom of this bowl into which the totem falls. Roll me a perception.
That is 15.
As Nina watches this totem drop into the hole that is now created in the bottom of this bowl, she hears the whooshing of air, but she notices she does not hear it land anywhere. And as the bowl continues to spin and these bright eyes continue to shine, with a 15, Nina will now begin to notice that the Mamu around her have all stopped to pay attention and what seems like reverence to the sudden awakening of this statue. They all stand, some getting very low to the ground, some ushering themselves just a little bit closer. Suddenly, a flash of light begins to come from that wide open mouth that made the alcove just above the bowl. And almost all of the Mamu, the hundreds that surround, begin to make their way towards this mouth. Roll me another perception check if you would. Actually, sorry, an investigation.
That is just a 4.
In that case, as they all begin to rush towards this mouth, you see that they are piling into it, but stopping at the entrance. And it looks like they're trying, as far as you could see, to perhaps pull something out of it. Though, at the distance you stand, perhaps 15 feet, can't quite tell, and the way is obscured by all of these many Mamu.
Nina will, quite in shock and in awe of everything that's happening, she thinks it's safe to stay back. That's definitely the right thing to do. But curiosity has always pulled her, and she, glancing towards Cota, Is he paying attention?
Cota, although he is now no longer surrounded, you could say bothered, by the Mamu who danced around him before, he appears to be very comfortably asleep in his mossy bed.
Well, what harm can it do to just see? So she will walk closer, as close as she needs to be to get a better view. And her eyesight is not good. So she pushes her glasses right up her nose and will probably have to come quite close.
Now, as Nina approaches this alcove, having to wade through almost a knee-high deep at this point mass of Mamu who climb and clamber across the floor and roots and stone and even each other to get towards this alcove. She cranes her neck to try and get just a little extra look at what's going on, despite the sheer number of Manu covering the enclosure. But as she gets to a distance of perhaps just over 5 feet from the hole, she can quite clearly see now that they are all struggling to pull something from this alcove. It looks like maybe foliage. It could perhaps be leaves or some kind of sack. But from here and from the only very small portions of what you can see past the Mamu, Nina would be uncertain.
Does it look like the Mamu are struggling to move this thing?
As you look at them, the ones most near it, this occluding item, have their tiny spindly arms outstretched and holding tight onto it. And they seem to, as small as their features are, and as hard as it is to discern, seem to be having some pains doing so, or at least be suffering some pain in doing it. The Mamu surrounding them all hold on to each other in a line behind one another, each pulling the last, doing their best. And it's only really a collection of about 20 Mamu that are actually doing the pulling. As far as you can see, the rest are trying, but failing to get a purchase on any of them.
Well, never wanting to see anyone struggling, she will reach a tentative hand, carefully trying to assess if, as her hand moves closer to whatever they're trying to pull to help them, if they're frightened by that. And if not, she will try and help ease this thing out.
As Nina tentatively puts her hand in amongst the Mamu, they notice nothing of her hand, so diligently concentrated on their task, and Nina would feel confident in moving in to lend some help. As Nina has to edge her way through with almost sharp, solid fingers to break apart the mass of Mamu to hold on to this item just as she grabs it, she'll notice it feels like cloth, and the portion that she's holding is white.
Feeling the cloth in her fingers, I think her mind immediately is brought back to the incidents that happened not a half an hour ago. The blue and white cloth that Cota had brought to her, and the horrible, bad substance. And she will let it go quickly, worried that this is of the same thing.
Nina's hand sharply withdraws from the hole. And as she does so, there is a strange, whirring, grinding noise that seems to be coming from the very center of the statue. Another portion of stone is rotating other than the bowl inside of this statue. And almost as soon as this noise begins, the Mamu, suddenly, with their tiny arms held onto this piece of fabric, all explode backwards from the alcove, toppling over each other, seemingly fine. But the obstructing item comes shooting forth and flutters onto the ground, not some 3 feet away from where Nina stands now, and another bright light begins to shine from the inside of this mouth, projecting to the back of the glade. And from the center of this mouth floats a small, sparkling item, the nature of which is obscured by the sheer radiance coming from the statue, creating this dazzling effect upon whatever it is that now, somewhat unearthly, hovers away from the mouth of the statue and begins to gently glide above the bowl that the statue holds. And as the grinding continues and the light almost begins to get just that little bit brighter, sparkling, creating almost a star-like effect around the forest that surrounds you. The lights go down. The grinding stops. There is a stillness, and the floating item drops down, ting, 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 and clatters into the bowl. The Mamu lay still, just for a moment, before picking themselves up and heading to their usual errands, almost as if nothing at all had just happened. And Nina, with this strange cloth almost at her feet, and a mysterious item in the bowl. What are her first moves?
I think she sees the cloth on the floor, getting that flash of all those bad thoughts that are washed over her. She looks around over her shoulders, finding it hard to believe she's the only one here. She steps over the cloth and walks towards the bowl.
Stepping resolutely over that cloth on the floor, presumably paying it not much attention, she heads towards the offering bowl. And if she looks down into its center, she will now see what plainly appears to be a beautiful ring. It is made of gold, and even with Nina's poor eyesight, she is just about able to see the intricate leafed carving around its edge, and a gleaming white stone in its center, quite large for a band of that size. Small specks of colour dot this white stone, and in the dimmed light of this forest enclosure, she'll almost notice a very faint glow about it. Now, could you roll me an investigation and a history check, please?
Investigation is 11 and history is a 3.
That is enough, at least. When Nina looks at this, it gives her a soft remembrance of some of the old, precious pieces of jewellery their grandfather used to make.
Seeing the ring in the bowl, so unexpected. She knows jewellery. She grew up with jewellers. She feels almost a confidence in seeing a piece of craft that she's grown up with, these sorts of crafts. Not that she would have been allowed to play with them or look at them for long. She reaches into the bowl, picking it carefully and eager to look at the detail. Even from this distance, even before she picks it up, she could recognize master craft work. She is keen to look at it further.
Paying particular attention now then. Looking at it, you could say, with a crafter's eye. It is clearly expertly made. This is not a run-of-the-mill piece of jewellery. From Nina's experience, this is bespoke. Like I say, it has a beautiful leafed pattern around the edge of the ring, almost ornate. And the gentle little claws that hold this fairly large white stone, even they have special ornate shape to them. They almost look perhaps like glyphs, each one individually different, not symmetrical. And the stone, as I say before, this gleaming white stone with specks of colour that just line the inside of it. Very polished, quite regal looking, perhaps.
She turns it over in her hand, mesmerized by the artistry and a tad frustrated that she doesn't quite have the skill to know more details. Well, what type of designer crafted this? What type of stone this is? She thinks of Steph. He'd love to see something like this. Maybe he should. Maybe he'd be able to tell her exactly what this piece is. It feels somehow wrong to take something from this sacred place. She glances again at Cota, still sleeping.
That's right.
But then again, she gave a gift. What if this place is giving something back? What if it's hers? All these thoughts are rushing through her head. How big does the ring look?
It looks as if, well, let's say this, if Nina were to try to wear it, it would go on her thumb.
I think she perhaps rubs her thumb around the metal. So tempted to put this on. And instead closes her fist around it and slips it into her pocket. Again, looking over her shoulders, almost embarrassed. But there's no one there. Not even Cota saw. She takes a step back from the statue, worried for a second that it might jump to life. Does anything happen?
As she waits, almost in anticipation of some rumbling event from the statue, she'll notice this same humble gratitude emanating from it.
She's slightly at ease and makes another deep bow before turning back to Cota. Cota, come here.
As you call Cota's name, he lies curled in his mossy bed. You see, open, and you can plainly see the temptation of his to just close his eye again and remain nestled and cozy, but he almost begrudgingly raises himself up, gives a huge stretch across his back that raises his tail, and then very delicately makes his way down the steps of roots that lead to the mossy carpet, and veers his way a wide gate around this white and blue fabric on the floor in front of you to stand at your side.
Is this what you found earlier? Is he avoiding it completely?
He didn't seem at all frightened by it or wary of the fabric, but he did indeed give it a wide gate as he came to meet you. And as you ask this question, he looks at you with piercing eyes for Cota.
I take a step towards the cloth. You did well, Cota. And I bend down and examine it.
Roll me investigation.
2.
You can easily discern, as you bend down to examine this cloth more closely, that this is in fact an item of clothing. Was there anything in particular that you were looking to discern from the cloth as you investigate?
Yes. I want to know if this cloth is the same one that Cota had ripped and brought to me in the village. And I think Nina will even take off her pack and get that jar to have a better look and see if it's the same material. And if there's any of that black substance anywhere on the cloth.
As Nina draws out the small jar that encloses the piece of fabric and the dark substance, even with the two, she is quite confident that what lays in front of her is the same. She can see the white and blue embroidery is almost an exact match, and something else very evident now, taking just a moment to pay small attention to it, is that this cloth, some sort of robe, it would seem, due to long sleeves and dangling tail at the back, is also covered on the back and arms with this black substance. And even so, with the two, I would say you can discern the small tear, rip at the bottom of the tail at the back, from where the piece of fabric Cota brought you has been removed.
Now this is a difficult one. There's no doubt in her mind that this black substance is dangerous and shouldn't be left anywhere. That it could potentially hurt others. Maybe it even already has. But she's also afraid of touching it again, of feeling that dark feeling. Is there a way to lift the garment or roll it without touching the black substance, or is it all over?
There are portions of the robe that are not covered in the black substance, and being just a little bit careful, although with a small bit of precision, Nina would be able to roll this up without touching the substance. If she'd like to attempt that, I would ask you to roll a dexterity.
Yes. And I think she will also look and see if there's any branches, any broken branches on the floor, and try and use the branches as best as possible to stop her from touching this cloth.
Of course. Quite easily within the edges of this glen, there are some long, sturdy sticks that could be used for this task. Though it will increase the difficulty of maneuvering, but yes, roll me a dexterity.
18.
Nina completes this task with ease as she very gently, delicately folds the plain white pieces over the top of this black substance, almost into a little parcel of itself, and a neatly wrapped white and blue robe sits on the floor.
She's going to put it in her backpack and attempt to take this home. Already, she's running through in her mind how she's going to explain this to Steph. But she's sure that someone more experienced, smarter, should take a look at this.
With these thoughts in her mind, is it at this time she chooses to leave the enclosure?
I think, regretfully, she thinks it's probably time to go home. Steph is probably waiting for her.
So, with a small piece of regret in her heart, she makes her way up the very short, steep hill to the bustling bush, with Cota in tow. Throws herself towards it, and once again allows herself to be moved through and shunted out the other side. You please roll another dexterity for me.
13.
Just enough to, not quite as gracefully as before, but land on the other side on 2 feet, nearly, just nearly tipping over. And as she takes a moment to let her eyes adjust to this difference in light and atmosphere, it almost feels like she's come from evening twilight, being so enclosed and surrounded by these softly glowing pink mamu. It's almost a shock to see that it's a bright, sunny day on the other side. And once she is thus acclimatized, Nina will make her way back along the path towards Lark's Grove. And it's not a long journey, for she's just coming along towards the familiar entrance to the orchard. But outside the entrance, just where you would turn at the fence and open the gate, you see Steph standing in the path ahead, and he has hands on hips, arched back, looking right up to the tall tree that stands in front of him. Saying something to the branches above. And as you get closer, the distant mumbling becomes more audible. You can hear him saying, "Well, yes, I've been here for many years myself, but I suppose you've been here for quite a lot longer, really. The things you must have seen in your time. I see myself as a bit of an old relic, but I am... Oh, Nina.
Hi, Opa.
Oh, I'm pleased to see you. This gentleman here was just saying that you'd be along shortly, but I was getting worried. You've been gone some time.
Yes, I've had a eventful day.
Where have you been?
Well, I went to the market to post my letter, and I got some plump beans as well for going to make a stew, I think.
Fantastic. Oh, we'll make sure we impart some of that to the orchard as well, I should think.
But I passed some interesting people on the way. Did a guard come by here?
A guard? No, not that I saw. Did you see a guard? We're stumped.
Yes, on the path I bumped into a guard. They said there was someone missing, someone dangerous missing.
Oh.
I thought they were coming this way, but maybe they found them. Anyway, I had lots of interesting conversations at the market. I met Bellamy. I'll tell you about it later. But Cota found something just off the path. When I was in the post office, he brought this piece of material. Hey, let me show you. Or should we go inside?
Come, it sounds like you've had quite the eventful day. Perhaps we put some tea together for you, and we'll sit and discuss this properly, shall we?
Yes. I take off my shoes and follow Steph into the orchard.
It's not long before you're back in your home, sat around the kitchen area with Steph presenting a nice steaming warm cup of sweet root tea on the table in front of you. Cota nestled in your lap, and Steph plumps his aching body down into a chair next to you and settles himself with a deep breath. There. I think that's a little better, isn't it?
Yes. Thanks for the tea.
Of course. Now, what is it that you found?
Well, at first I thought it was just a piece of cloth. It was in Cota's mouth. But then when I had a closer look, there was this... maybe it's easier to show you than explain. And I take my backpack, clearing space on the table. I wouldn't touch this. Don't touch it. I think it's bad. I touched it and I had these bad feelings, I don't know. And I take the cloth and I shake my bag and empty it onto the table.
Presenting the entire contents of your bag to Steph, is that correct?
Just the bag, yes. Not the items in my pocket.
Remind me which items you have in your pocket.
I have the ring in my pocket. And in my bag I have the cloak or the garment and the jar with the piece of material in it.
So as this jar and the large robe fall onto the table, Steph is slightly taken aback by the mess that clatters in front of him, and it takes him a few moments to discern precisely what he's looking at as he picks up the jar first and then quickly darts his eyes to the robe, feeling the fabric, looking across it, and then darting his eyes back to the jar. And you see, well, roll me an insight, please.
A natural one.
Steph's face looks almost confused as he looks between these items. But you do see a dawning resolution on his face. One that feels quite mysterious as his frantic eyes become still and they hold on the jar, and he stares at the black substance, allowing the white robe cloth in his hand to drop.
What is it? What do you see?
Nina, where did you find this?
Cota, I was in the post office and Cota was in the woods and he came running and he had this in his mouth.
Is Cota alright?
Yes, I think so. And I pick up Cota and turn him over, look under his tail, turn him upside down, checking behind his ears.
Yes, he does seem to be fine, doesn't he?
You think you could have been hurt by this?
Quite possibly. Are you alright?
Yes, I think so. I smelt it, and the feeling, it was dark and hard to describe, but nasty.
You do begin to see Steph very slightly shake as you say these words. And he says to you, I think it is very lucky that nothing worse has happened to you, Nina. And I will need to take these and destroy them. Okay?
Okay. What is it? Do you know, have you seen this before?
Yes. Nina. And perhaps sometime I will explain. But not at this time.
What can I do? Can I help to get rid of them?
No, you needn't worry. But I would ask that wherever in the forest you found these, you tell me where it is. And you do not go there again. You understand?
Yeah, I understand.
And you begin to hear Steph mumbling some things to himself as he looks down and looks around the room, most of which inaudible. You can just about glimmer the words. Oh, it could be spreading. What if it's reached too far?
Opa?
Yes.
I was worried that someone maybe was hurt by this. It seems to be some sort of a cloak or something. What if there was someone wearing the cloak?
Very true. Yes. It could be likely. I will, inform the local guard, and I'm sure they will pursue the area and make sure that anyone who could be affected is safe. But please, Nina, where did you find this?
It was just off the main path, towards the village.
Any specific landmarks that might help?
I can't quite remember.
Okay, don't worry, Nina. It sounds like you've had quite a hard day. Please drink your tea. If that's all, I'll get to work on this. Yes.
Yeah, that's all. Thanks. Sorry, I maybe shouldn't have picked it up if it was dangerous and brought it here.
No, Nina. If you felt it was right, then it was right.
Thanks, Opa.
Relax.
And I think the beans were in the bag with this cloak. Does that mean I probably shouldn't use them?
No, I would say probably not.
Okay.
In fact, where are they? He begins to sort of rifle in amongst the cloak and just about discovers the plump beans that sort of lie a little bit scattered out underneath them, and then he takes the jar and the cloak and wraps all of them with the beans as well to collect everything that was in the bag. I will take care of this now. I think it's important I do.
Okay.
I'll be back soon.
If you need my help,
No, quite all right.
Okay.
Quite all right.
I'll get making dinner.
That would be lovely, Nina.
I think we've got something to make dinner with.
We live in an orchard, Nina. There's always something.
True.
I'll see you shortly.
See you.
And he moves very quickly, and his smiling face drops sharply as he turns and hurries to the back into his study with the door closed. How does Nina feel after this interaction?
I think Nina's more worried than ever. And she looks to Cota. Cota looking back to her. It was only a white lie. Fine, stop looking at me.
Cota's nose twitches, his head turns as you say this.
I will tell him, just he's quite stressed right now. I think it's better to let him deal with this, and then we'll figure out the rest. And her hand reaches to her pocket, just making sure the ring is still there.
As you put your hand in the pocket, coldness, the metal, strikes your fingertips. It's almost an unnatural coolness. Feels nice. It's certainly still there.
She relaxes a little. You did well today, Cota. Thanks for your help.
Cota sort of waves his head around in a settling motion and then dips it down into his torso with his paws, covering his eyes, making himself quite settled on your lap.
As he does that, I think I'll slip the last of the nuts from my pouch. Just put it in front of him.
Almost coyly, as if not to seem too eager, he remains in a sleepy, peaceful position, but you can see a short, sharp paw just pop out and scoop some of the nuts towards his face that leans in his hands, and just begin to hear a very subtle crunching noise.
Stays between us, okay?
Cota is quite occupied with his nuts, but you can feel safe that he shares the sentiment.
Good. And I will take a deep breath and begin to make dinner.